All season, and that means it's bug season. Heck, who am I kidding? It's always bug season in Texas. And that's why you need Grandeur Pest Solutions in your corner. They're locally owned and operated. They're trained, they're trustworthy, and they have a proven record as they have been in business for almost 10 years. They provide pest control against ants, bed bugs, bees, roaches, fleas, wasps, mosquitoes, rodents, spiders. If it crawls and you don't like it, they're probably going to take care of it for you. Now, they serve all of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and they're locally owned. These two guys have been running this business since 2013, and every year they get bigger and bigger. But you know what they still do? They still have great customer service. In fact, if you get a hold of them, they're usually going to have your quote and your job ready to go within 48 hours. That's pretty good. Now, you can call them for a free estimate at 469-809-1769. You can find them online at Grandeur4, that's the number 4, shore.com. You can also find them on Facebook. Just type in Grandeur Pet Solutions, and we are so happy that they're title sponsor for OutDrank The Coverage in 2023.
Good evening.
Oh, my God.
It don't work.
We look stupid. I have mine where I can see both of us, and I can still see mine. Thank God I'm wearing glasses. But Jesus, we look retarded. I mean, we can't say that word.
Oh, God.
Everybody, it is OutDrank The Coverage, happy hour number 5. And I'm going to tell you what, folks, this show proves how much we love you, because we've had some, ever since the solar eclipse, my internet's been out. Let the conspiracy theories begin right there. But, we're just happy to be actually coming here. We're doing it a little different. So if we have some hiccups, it's going to be okay. It doesn't matter, because this is supposed to be, I'm going to take these off. These weirdly give me a headache. But yeah, these are the glasses. We'll be talking about that. I've got mine on right here. You can take them off. It's okay, intern Noe. Look at that. Yeah. See, I had mine over my reading glasses so I could actually still see. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I will admit, I wasn't like poo-pooing it before, but I wasn't overly until it actually happened. That, of course, being the solar eclipse. We were as one of those that, whoa, look at our chat. I think we've got spam in our chat, folks. Look at that. Can you see the chat? Maybe because the window that I can see the chat.
I can see. Okay.
Yeah, but anyway. Yeah, we'll talk about the solar eclipse. We'll talk about some sports stuff. Of course, it's the NCAA men's championship. We'll talk about yesterday's thrilling women's championship. We'll talk a little NHL, a little baseball, a little basketball, a little WrestleMania. This is the show, and I'm saying this in a good way. This is the show we're kind of taking our eyes off of the NFL for the most part. We'll talk about a couple things, but mainly taking our eyes off the NFL for the most part tonight, just because starting with the draft, it's basically back to NFL football season for us.
Yeah, you and I have some shows coming up, but yeah, I kind of want to just wait to do more NFL stuff. Then there's a couple of big NFL news that popped up that we'll probably discuss, but we have our look back season 2 coming up with the honorable mentions from the 70s. There were some great rivalries that Cowboys had, and then we're gonna continue with number 4 on the look back series. And I believe that's the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, Green Bay.
And then we got the draft coming up on the 25th. That's fast approaching, and I look forward to it. And we did a lot of work on it, and it's gonna. Last year's was pretty good, and I hope everybody comes and listens to us as we go over the first round picks.
Yeah, we had a blast last year doing it. I think that was honestly the first time that we did that kind of thrown together, to be honest with you. We didn't plan that out too far. We knew we wanted to do something with the draft, and we had talked about possibly doing I think a Friday show. We were going to talk about the first rounds, and then I was like, why don't we just hang out and do the show? And if we get 5 viewers, we get 5 viewers. We ended up getting a pretty good number for us for back then. And then Brett and his guys from NETSN jumped on, and that was fun. They're going to probably join us again. And it's just a blast. We'll we start an hour out, and we'll talk about just kind of football news up to that point. And then we'll kind of, predict what we think will happen with some trades and stuff. And then we'll hit the draft and it'll be the first round and it'll be fun. I was telling you before we got on here, I'm looking forward to the honorable mention top 5 Cowboy rival because we're getting to talk a lot of great teams from the 70s, some of them who won Super Bowls and some of them who didn't, but they were still great teams.
Yeah. Just to clarify, like you were saying, it's just the 70s. We could have done other decades, but that seemed to be the one that kind of had 5 to really almost 6 legit contenders for biggest rivals for the Cowboys in the entire history of the Cowboys. And you and I had a lot of fun researching all the different topics and videos regarding these teams. And I'm looking forward to doing the show. I'm looking forward to everybody listening to us talk about the show. I almost wanted to do that like as a live show, but that is gonna be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that. I don't want to say anything more about it because I kind of want to just put all the content on there. But yeah, I think that'll be very. I mean, the rest of the season 2 of Look Back series, the rivals, is going to be fun as we talk about the top 5 rivals in Cowboys history. But we kind of had to do this show as well just to get the other teams that also kind of had famous games. One in particular, Hail Mary. We'll talk about that. But there's a lot of famous games that are outside of our agreed upon top 5. So that's something I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, and by the way, we do an honorable mention for every decade per show. It's just the 70s were so many honorable mentions. And also we had kind of decided that, hey, we're going to do a special episode for the Cardinals because the Cardinals was a division rival and, for so long, and especially in the 70s and early 80s, but in the 70s, they were a thorn in the side of the Cowboys. And so that morphed into, well, if we're going to do them, let's just do all the 70s in one extra show. We'll just do a top 5 with a special honorable mention show of just the 70s. And it's going to be a blast. But yeah, so that's all the football. Ryan Fox might join us. I don't know yet. I haven't heard from him, but he might join us to talk Rangers. I was on his show yesterday, the Texas 2 team, talking about what, outside of injuries, Noe, and they're all of a sudden starting to pile on quickly, but outside of injuries, the Rangers have got to be happy with their start so far.
Yeah. And by the way, I liked y'all's podcast yesterday, Texas 2 team episode 2. That was really good. And it was really informative too, especially what you're talking about with the injuries to their pitchers. Was it 9 or 10 right now having Tommy John surgery?
Yeah, in the MLB. But now I do disagree with the Players Association blaming the pitch clock. I don't think that's the reason.
And that's where I side with you on that because I love the game speeding up. I think that was one thing that needed to change with the game just to get it toward modern time. That was always an issue for me and kind of tuned me out of the sport.
Exactly.
That a shorter game will make me watch, even though I don't like the de-emphasis on batting average. I like you had mentioned this. I thought you were going to say Whitey ball, but you said small ball because that was Whitey Herzog was the manager. Yeah, Herzog was the manager for the Cardinals back
Why
in the 80s.
You think I'm always saying something about the white man? No way.
That was what it was called, Whitey ball. It was a small ball. Yeah. Vince Coleman, Ozzie Smith, the Wizard.
One of my favorite eras, and part of that is because that's when I was growing up. I'm in 85. I'm 10 years old. Again, it goes back to 85 for you. 85. I'm 10 years old, and it's the St. Louis, the Kansas City,
not Subway Series, the Highway Series.
The Highway Series, and the bad call goes to Game 7. 86. I still contend for those that, even though I'm a Ranger fan more 100% now, when I was a kid, I was definitely 50-50. And we didn't go to as many Astros games, but we went to a lot of them. And one of my favorite teams is the 1986 Houston Astros. But I still, and it was them and the Giants and the Cardinals. They were all fighting for each other. But I still loved watching the Cardinals, man. I still loved Coleman and Willie McGee and Ozzie Smith and Jack Clark there for a while, and just and I'm trying to think of his name. Oh man, Joe. I cannot think of the pitcher that was there in that era. Him and Mike Scott for a while battle as the top pitchers in the NL, and it was just, oh man, the splitter was Mike Scott scuffing, and I mean it was just a fun era of baseball. So I understand some of that is nostalgic, but I also am a big fan of just like I love the home run. Don't get me wrong, but you can build a team that does both, and that's what I loved about the 2011 Rangers. That was a team that did both very well.
You know, considering go back to the '86 Stros. Before, so pre-94, it was 2 leagues, 2 divisions. Winner of each division plays a best of 7 or best of 3, or like I think it just changed, best of 3 or best of 5, and then the winner goes to the World Series. And during that era, I would say, yeah, during that era, there was a lot of great teams back like in the 40s and 50s that didn't even make the playoffs because it was just the winner of the pennant, winner of the AL just makes it to the World Series because there wasn't enough teams back then. So whoever won your league just goes straight to the World Series. Would you say the '86 Astros were one of the greatest teams that never won?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, for me at least.
Like NFL Network has that Missing Rings
show, the Missing Rings show,
where they talk about like the 88 Bengals, the 69 Vikings, teams that were great, 81 Chargers, but they just didn't win a Super Bowl. So I always keep hearing the '86 Astros. That's why I wanted to ask you. I never watched them live like you did, but just hearing them and Mike Scott.
Right. I mean, yeah, you had Mike Scott with the split finger, and then you had Nolan Ryan, with the fastball, and then you had Bob Nepper, and then you still had a Necro there for 81, 82, and 83.
Wait, who?
Well played, sir. Joe Necro through the knuckle and everything. Don Sutton came through there in that stretch. J.R. Richards was 79, who tragically had a stroke and had to retire from baseball. And I mean, at one time you had Nolan Ryan and J.R. Richards you could possibly see in one night, and both of them threw 100 miles and ball dancing around and stuff. And so the Astros of that whole era, 80 they make the playoffs and get eliminated by the Phillies. And again, like you said, you played one round against the National League division on the other side, and then you went right to the the World Series, and you sit there, and that 81 they had the strike, and so the Dodgers won the first. The Astros won the first half and the Dodgers won the second half, or vice versa, and they played in a special playoff game. And then in '86, they make it, and it's Game 6 against the Mets, and you just knew if they got to Game 7, Mike Scott was in the Mets' head so much at that point that he could not throw a splitter all game, and he still would just baffle them because it had got to the point where they were scared of it. And if you had just got to a Game 7, and then I think they'd have beat Boston. I mean, Boston was a good team, don't get me wrong, but I mean, that was a special Astros team.
Did you ever watch the MLB Network at all?
Oh yeah, I watch it. I still watch it to this day. I have it free.
There was a segment or series on there called The Seasons where they just went over like the world or the actual season for each team, not the actual champion, but the season, what happened, like highlights. There was one on '86, and it was funny that you mentioned that because I think they even mentioned that on there. That I think a lot of this stuff's on YouTube now. I think that's how I noticed all these shows. But yeah, that was the '86 Astros. I think they had mentioned something about Mike Scott, like the Mets were kind of. It always seemed like they struggled in that season in the playoffs. They struggled against the Stros. They struggled against the Sox. This is one of those teams. They were stacked and they prevailed, but
I mean,
for a team that good, they should not have struggled as much as you would think, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, look, please do not think I'm saying that the baseball playoffs are watered down now. I'm not. As great as the Rangers winning that World Series, that doesn't happen if we don't have extra playoffs. Let's remember that. How would we view the Rangers if it was Joe McGrain? That's the pitcher I was thinking of for the Cardinals back then. Sorry, let me go back. That's what happens when I drink. I blurt sports knowledge things from the last thing that we were talking about.
Aaron on the chats mentioned the '97 Indians as well.
Yeah, I was going to bring them up here in a second. We got a great little topic going here. This is so. Because we've had so much late breaking news on our happy hours, this is the first one we're actually getting to kind of stretch our legs and just talk for a couple hours. But
before you continue, Terry, how are you doing and what are you drinking?
I am obviously doing well. I'm actually trying this episode on with the air conditioning on in the studio just to see if it carries over, because you've been in the studio and we're getting to that time of year where 7 o'clock on a Monday night can be really warm in here. So I'm going to listen to the show later and see if not, I can at least use the air when I'm in here. Other than that, I'm doing great, and I've got some great vodka. Good Night Loving. It's my favorite now. I'm buying them every time we go to get stuff. And what are you drinking, sir? And how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. And I'm doing Old Forester 1920 Prohibition style. It's 115 proof, 57.5% alcohol. And it's one of my favorite bourbons. It's very heavy on the brown sugar. And there's like something that cuts into that sweetness. I think it's like coffee or something. Anyway, it's really good. It's still one of my favorite bourbons, and it's just a good sipping drink. This would be one of those ones I remember you mentioning that you wanted a strong bourbon you wanted to have on your shelf to sip on during shows or games.
Yeah.
I would put this up on your list of ones you need to have.
Yeah, so the great segue there. If y'all know, we do a weekly football show, which is the beginning and the birth of OutDrank The Coverage, and now it's become its own little network, which we're excited about. But we've decided that OutDrank The Coverage's next year in season will most likely be live every week. There might be some weeks that change, but we're going to mostly do live like we're doing now. And what we'll do is we'll start them at like 6:30 and talk about the Cowboys and the Texans, because those are going to be the two that we focus on this year. And then, of course, look out to the NFL. But then if start the Monday night game, and if we're enjoying the game and having a good time, just continue until we're ready to end. And if it's kind of a boring game, then we'll just get our OutDrank The Coverage talk out, and then we'll end the show. But we want to do it all live this year. And I want something I can sip on and get a good buzz, but not too much, because Tuesday's my heavy day of recording all the other stuff I do in season. So I want to be able to do it without a headache, because it's hard enough sometimes on a good day to sit and record from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and have these earbuds on, just pounding my ear at a hangover. And that just sucks.
Yeah, you look so happy in mid-December when you're done with the high school playoffs, just because you're stretched thin during that time period. It's actually kind of hard just even like having normal conversations with you. Nowadays, we just usually kind of just focus on show stuff, just because
we hate each other.
We hate each other, one, and then two, November, December. I mean, it is because you and Grant on Silent Silent, y'all do a lot. A lot goes into those shows y'all do. I definitely have a lot of respect for that, and y'all have a really strong following on that channel.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, it is really good. As much as I don't want to give Grant his flowers,
he doesn't do anything. No, well, it's not. It's that, and especially in the playoffs, we're trying to talk every game. But then I also, I do multiple coaches shows, and I do my region shows, and we don't pick coaches that lose. So most of the coaches go pretty far into the playoffs. And that's why I kind of want to make it a consistent like tradition that Monday night game after the state championships, I like doing a live stream then. And we can watch NFL, and I don't have to think about anything else but the NFL. I don't have to think about high school or, what I have to edit and all that. So yeah, you're right. It's tough. And that's one of the reasons why we want to do these happy hours through the off season, is to kind of reconnect that just hanging out and talking sports. And that was the birth of OutDrank The Coverage.
Yeah. So actually, it's been 10 years since we've been doing OutDrank The Coverage. Technically. Started in 20 break. Yeah. Took a 6-year break.
We were forming the show. We needed to workshop it.
But yeah, we sort of found our groove. So we're in good shape. But anyway, going back to what you were saying about the baseball teams, Aaron in the chat brought up the '97 Indians.
They were fun.
That was a great 7-game series against the Marlins. That was one of those Marlins teams that's loaded, and then they dismantled. And then 2003, they were loaded. They dismantled. This 2023 Marlins, they made it to the playoffs. They finally won a game recently, and they're like 1-9, 1-10. But they didn't really like just unload. They got rid of their GM or operations person, that Kim Ng was like the first female in that role in Major League Baseball history. But I mean, that could have been it, but yeah, this wasn't like a full teardown from a playoff appearance.
No, you're right. But you look how they've started. They're terrible. But teams make the playoffs almost every year and get into that, like, you know, they everything breaks right for them, and then the next year they just fade away. As a Ranger fan, I've been so happy that they started so strong, because without, you know, the starting pitching that's becoming later in the summer, you're just hoping to win a bunch of games, like win as many as you can. And even if they split the Stros, I know it'll be frustrating because they started out with 2 wins against them. But even if they just split with the Stros, outside of the Young injury and now the Spores injury, you've got to be happy if you're a Ranger fan, because I mean the bats have already come alive immediately. Like the Orioles haven't. Baltimore is supposed to be having one of the best offenses in the league, and they're like 29th right now in on base percentage, and they'll come around. But it's nice for the Rangers that they've started off like that.
That was the thing I wanted to talk to you about, because I love the beauty of the first month of baseball. To me, is to seeing all these teams that start off strong.
Yeah,
you're wondering, okay, can they keep up? Can they? Pittsburgh, yeah, they're 8-2 right now. You know, they had that undefeated run for a little bit, and then they lost a couple of games, and then they won the last couple of games. So they're 8-2. They're in pretty good shape. What I like to do is wait until the end of the month, end of April, to see who's in first. Because I remember a couple years ago, I think Kansas City was the number 1 team in baseball at the end of April. They were like 16-9 or something like that. Yeah. They ended up having one of the worst records. But it's just, to me, it's just one of those things. It's kind of funny just seeing teams like that start off. I like the Detroit Tigers. They were, I think, 4-0, 5-0 to start the season.
They're supposed to be. They've rounded back into form. They're supposed to be, and of course the Central. We don't know how strong the Central is going to be this year, but the Tigers are supposed to be there in contention this year.
They kind of started slow last year, and they righted the ship a little bit. This could be the year they make a run, or they could just be a little bit too young. You notice that in baseball, where there's teams that have a hot start and they still contend toward the end of the season just because they're young. They have talent. They're gonna keep being competitive, but they're just not good enough this year. But next year, exactly. So I could definitely see that. Craig Counsell with the Cubs, they're 6-3, good start so far.
And they started the year getting 2 out of 3 taken against the Rangers, but one of them was that extra inning, really competitive. Great way for the Rangers to start the season. You get that spotlight as the World Series champ, you raise the banner, and you have a little bit of controversy with the foul or not foul, and then the guy who he should have went for the ball anyway, but the guy who was in the center of that, Jonah Heim, he hits the game winner. I mean, it's amazing to me, after years of just not understanding or accepting that the baseball gods would be kind to Texas. That's just not how it was meant to be. And I've told you this before. I always felt the Rangers fandom that I had was the yin to the yang of my football teams, who were genuinely, they've had long stretches of not being successful, but historically are successful. Dallas Cowboys, Texas Longhorns, historically really, really good. My high school was winning the state. All that stuff has happened. And so I just always felt, okay, the Rangers are they're the team that takes the punishment for all that. And so for now, since last year, even with the bad injuries, it just feels like the baseball gods are shining on Texas, and that scares me.
I mean, they're shining on the Rangers, they're shining on the Stars, now they're shining on the Mavs. One day the sun will shine in Arlington for the Cowboys, but
at least the Cowboys are winning. I mean, I know it's frustrating, the playoffs, but I'd rather have 3 straight 12-5s and unhappy playoffs than have 3 straight 5-11s like we did in the early 2000s and no playoffs and being just a terrible team to watch. And there's no such thing as a fun 5-11 team. Unless that team is really bad early and they just shed all their and they start playing rookies and the rookies start playing balls out. Okay, that could be fun, but that wasn't what was happening back then. So I'll still take 3 12-5s and bad playoffs over that.
Yeah, and you didn't really know what the direction was of the Cowboys in the early 2000s. You saw them go 5-11, but you saw a piece here and there, but you didn't really see the long-term goal. Like, how are we going to get back to being in the playoffs? How are we going to get back to Super Bowl contending?
Yeah.
So that was, kind of just some lost years there. Yeah, those are pretty sad. But it helped me, appreciate other teams more, like the Rams. They were pretty good, greatest show on turf. Um, Buccaneers, no two. I like their defense. I always like teams with good defenses. Um, but yeah, so um, baseball, I like the beginning of the season. I like just speculating on who's gonna push through. Right now, you don't know. Like right now, the White Sox are at 1-8. I know they're not going to have a great season, but a 1-8 White Sox team. I know they traded Dylan Cease to I think the Giants right
Yeah.
before the season started. So they're not going to be in contention. But there are teams like that where they're like, for example, Houston Astros are 3-7. They're not going to have a losing record. They're going to right the ship at some point. They're just off to a slow start. Um, Miami Marlins, they might right the ship. I
I
don't
still
know
think
what's.
they can.
It's still early. They're one and
Yeah.
nine right now. It's still early, so things could change. I really think right now, based off of what I remember from last season, and then some of the stuff that happened during the offseason, I really think that my team in the NL that might surprise everybody is the Reds. I think they're going to be a team that's going to contend for that Central title.
Yeah.
I don't think the Pirates are ready yet. They have a good mix of youth and veterans, but I just don't think they're going to sustain this 8-2 streak.
Well, the problem with them is, are they going to sustain that team long enough? Or are they going to trade off when people are about to become big contracts? Keep doing what you're doing. I'm going to go check and see if my actual internet is on real quick. So keep going through the standings and just giving your takes, and I'll be right back.
All right, yeah. So the thing I was going to say before you just left me was the Pirates actually. I think I looked this up years ago. They actually make profits every year. They actually are a cash-rich franchise, even with their lack of success on the field. So I really don't see the ownership being a ownership that really wants them to. They really don't care if the team succeeds. They just care that they're under payroll, their payroll budget. They get enough people in the stands, and they still make money. So I guess that's their main driving goal. I don't really think that the Pirates franchise post Bonds and Bonilla in 92, 93 really cared about contending for a championship. There was a point in there in the mid 2010s where they had McCracken, who's back with the team now, or McCutcheon, sorry, not McCracken, Andrew McCutcheon. They were sort of contenders, winning 90 plus games, but they're like the Oakland Athletics a few years ago. They just, crap the bed in the playoffs. Going to the West, the Dodgers, they're going to be there in the playoffs. They're 8-4 now. The Diamondbacks made enough improvements. They're off to a little bit slow start at 4-6, but they're going to be there at the end. The Giants made some moves in the offseason, so I think they're going to go on a roll during the summertime, and they'll be there in the end as well. So I think the NL West is going to be very fun to watch. I think some of the same stuff is going to play out in the NL East. The Braves are just too good. The Phillies are just too good. I think it'll be rinse and repeat there. I think both those teams will make the playoffs. I'm not sure who's going to win the division, but it should be the Braves. They're almost as stacked as the Dodgers.
What Aaron Jackson Hendon says the the Padres could surprise. I mean, they've surprised by how they've underwhelmed over the last few years. I don't know if anything. I'm not surprised by anything they do. If they win 95 and contend for the division, or win 85 and contend for the playoffs, that wouldn't shock me. If they win 75 and underperform, that wouldn't shock me. Them in Toronto, to me, are the two biggest. I don't want to say underperformers yet, but it sure does feel like that. I mean, I think everybody thought 3 years ago we'd have at least seen one Padre Blue Jay World Series and possibly the beginning of a mini little rivalry between those two teams.
The Blue Jays have some of the best hitters in all of baseball, in Bo Bichette and Vlad Jr. You would think that they would be number one in the AL East, even with the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Rays, and now the Orioles, who are young and really good. But it just hasn't materialized. They're just a team that gets to like 88, 90 wins and then loses in the wild card round. Or they'll just miss the playoffs. So not really sure where you're getting with that team. I don't know if it's a manager issue, or I don't think it's a talent issue per se. I really think it's more I don't know. I think they're just missing a part or two. I just look at that lineup. I'm thinking, how are they not winning 100 games every year?
Well, I think also it just goes to show you that even though there's always a couple teams that are trying it in the moment, it's really hard to just collect talent. You have to build a team as well. It looks like the Rangers and Houston, the fourth game of the series, looks like it's going to be a basher, as Houston and Texas are tied bottom of the first 2-2, but Texans has bases loaded with no outs.
Oh, nice. It's just so fun. Like I don't really, this is the part where I'll really will focus on baseball the first month of the year. Again, just because it's fresh, it's new. I need something after football, but after April, I think things will materialize. The Yankees look good with Juan Soto, who was a Padre. The Red Sox are surprisingly they're off to a really good start, considering they really didn't do anything to make themselves good this season.
That's a good point. Yet they're winning, and again, very small sample size, so sometimes that's a little bit, it's not.
And I'm glad we're doing these happy hours throughout the offseason, because my opinion will change with each happy hour. Oh, and I agree with Aaron. PNC Park is very beautiful. That's one of the reasons why I do want to go to Pittsburgh at some point, just to go to that ballpark. That is a very beautiful.
I thought he was talking about the one isn't that the one in San Diego too?
PNC is in, I think, Pittsburgh. San Diego.
PetSmart.
Yeah, Petco.
Petco. I knew it was something.
Yeah.
Hey, if you'll share that, if you can, I put up the Rangers box score on the side there. Again, if you're new to this episode of Happy Hour, normally I'm doing all that. Yeah, there we go. Just so people can have as we're talking this. Right now it's 3-2 Rangers, bottom of the first, no outs.
I never thought I would see the Rangers as World Series champions. Still to this day shocks me.
Yeah, I mean I told you this last week. I think where I'm sitting right now, like you can't really tell us out of the camera, but I'm literally looking up at my little Ranger display that's behind the camera, and it's got like one of the 70s pennants that I just brought back from my parents' house. I've got a World Series ring, hey, where did the thing go? Weird. World Series baseball and all that. And every day when I'm recording in here, if I'm editing, I'll look up and I'll just kind of giggle. I've spent a lot of mornings. I wake up and I'll just put on the World Series highlights or the Houston, the Game 7 highlights. I just love to do that. 5-2 now, Rangers. Sound like nice. Brockmeyer. That's a great show. But yeah, I mean, it like I said earlier, I always thought the Rangers were going to be the losers because I had so many football winners, and so now and they brought themselves to some validity in the late 90s. And I kind of was fine with that. Like, just make the playoffs every once in a while. It's cute and all. And then, 2011 happened. And man, that 2010 didn't bother me. I was just happy to be there. The Giants were just a better team, great pitching staff, yada, yada, yada. But 2011, man, that hurt. Like that hurt. That's still that will be by far the biggest sports pain that I will have ever felt.
Yeah, I think that's probably mine too. I can't think of one with the Stars or the Mavericks. Oh, well, I guess 06 with the Mavericks in the finals.
06 with the Mavericks sucked, but I never I was a hardcore basketball fan for a long, long time, but I just never really thought of it. I guess kind of like the Rangers, to be honest with you. I just never really thought of them as champion team. So when they did it, got there and folded, I kind of bought into that mantra. Oh, they're soft, and then you kind of realize, well, no, they probably got screwed when you really look at how the reffing went and all that. But they redeemed themselves in 2011, oddly.
The thing is, I thought that wasn't even their best team initially when I was watching them play in 2011. But looking back, I think that was the best starting five for Dirk at that point in time at their given age. Like Sean Marion, the Matrix, that was one of his last good years, and he was up in his early 30s. He had one or two more good years left. Jet Terry, he was getting up there in age, but he was great as a six-man. Jason Kidd, he was really up in his age, but he was perfect as a point guard that could defend and knock down a couple of threes. Deshaun Stevenson. Is it Stevenson?
Yeah.
Okay.
The defensive.
Oh, yeah. Lance Stevenson's the pacer guy I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Deshaun Stevenson, he was another guy, a shooting guard that could defend and hit 2 or 3 3-pointers per game. I already mentioned Marion. And then Tyson Chandler took care of the paint. He redirected shots, got rebounds, gave us second chance opportunities.
Yeah.
It was the perfect team for Dirk. He had 4 guys that could defend and make life easy for him because he didn't. And right now with this 2024 Mavs, I think is almost similar to that team. They got Lively and Gafford at center now, and it's kind of similar to Tyson Chandler, but everything around him. The only difference is Kyrie Irving. Dirk didn't really have that other option that was a starter, that was a shooting threat like he was back then.
Yeah.
So now he has Irvin. Luka's in pretty good shape to really. This team right here has the best opportunity to get back to the finals since that 2011 Mavericks team.
Yeah, I agree. Even more than the one that made the Western Conference Finals on kind of a just got hot at the right moment type of run. My dad brought up the Dwight Clark catch when I was talking about worst sports moments. Yeah, that one sucked. I probably was a little too young to truly grasp it. 94 not beating San Francisco out there, that's pretty high up there.
I remember
86 up there losing.
86.
Astros losing to the losing to the Mets in Game 6. That one hurt because that was the first time I was following a team that legitimately could make the World Series, as we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, great reference by your dad to the 81 NFC Championship game. Obviously, you and I wouldn't remember too much from that, but just looking back, of course, that sucks, and that kind of brought about.
I told you the story about my mom, right?
Can you tell me again?
Yeah. So for those that don't know, my mom is not a Cowboy fan. She hates the Cowboys with everything. She's a Washington fan. And so, being a 6-year-old when that game happened, I had to, I don't even really remember the game at all. But I remember thinking the Cowboys were going to win, going to take a bath. My day is over, getting ready to go to school, get up and go to school that next day, all that fun stuff. And my mom, while I'm taking a bath, I'm playing with my G.I. Joes and my rubber duckies, just living the good life. Life is good for 6-year-old Terry until my mom literally kicks the door down. The Cowboys got beat. And just laugh like the devil. And that's my memory of the 81 catch. I don't remember a lot of the game. I just remember that. But I also go back to if he wins in 81 or 82, do we ever get the 90s? Does that give him enough rope that Landry would have still been around in 89 and 90 and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we'll never know, man. It's kind of funny that your mom did that. I remembered as soon as you mentioned the bathtub part of it.
I bet that's what you remember.
Let's just
skip that,
not think too much into that. But I remember the 81 season for Washington, of course, because I love football and I look up every team and every year. I think they started off really slow that year. That was Joe Gibbs' first year. I think they started off 0-4, 0-5, and they kind of went on a run toward the end of the year, finished 8-8.
You know why?
All right, why?
So Joe Gibbs was hired to run the Don Coryell offense. Sorry. He was a assistant with San Diego. Okay. And he was brought in to throw. And that's what they tried the first 4 games. And they struggled. And they struggled that year. And he decided, no, that's just not how this team is built. That's not the type of quarterback Joe Theismann is. And things like that. And so they changed things, and then they became who the Redskins became. Joe Gibbs winning 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks.
That is so funny because that kind of issue happened toward the late 80s, early 90s for Washington. And then they came to the conclusion, oh, yeah, we need to just go back to running the ball a lot.
Exactly.
You remember the 90 or 91 Thanksgiving game against Dallas where they lost to us? And it was
talking about the 1-16.
I don't think so. I don't. It might have been 90. I think it might have been 90. I think 9. I have to look it up, but I can't remember who. Let me see. 1990 Thanksgiving.
I don't have a lot of speed on my internet right now since I'm using my phone. So,
did they give you an update on when that's gonna?
just they took the time off. So 90. Now I know when Dallas beat them in 89. That was Thanksgiving, wasn't it?
So Dallas beat Washington in 90. Yeah, so it was 90. Dallas beat Washington 20. Yeah, and that game, Joe Gibbs swore after that he would just run the ball because that was to him that was the reason why they lost the kids. He just went back to what he knew, or like his initial instinct is the pass. So shockingly enough, considering how many great running backs he's had in his lifetime, even just short-term running backs like Biner and Riggs.
Oh my God. I see why he said it. They threw the ball 54 times in that game.
Oh, wow.
Now, to be fair, in that game, Dallas jumped out to a 10-0 lead, and then it became 10-10. The Redskins actually took over in the third quarter, and then the Cowboys scored 17 unanswered points. And I think a lot of that, but still, they threw. I see why he went back to that 54 times. They only ran for 15 times, and one of those was to Art Monk. On the other hand, Dallas ran 23 times for 132 yards.
Yeah, it was. So 1990 was a season where the Cowboys, they were just coming off the 1-15 season. They ended up going 7-9. Jimmy Johnson won Coach of the Year. Emmitt Smith, I think it was Rookie of the Year. Almost had 1,000 yards rushing. They were in playoff contention until Aikman got hurt. And then Washington, they ended up getting into the playoffs. They won 4 of their last 5 games after that Thanksgiving game. And they made the playoffs, beat the Eagles in the wild card. This was the revenge game from the body bag game earlier in the season. It was a Monday night game on November 12th where they lost 28-14, and a lot of their players got hurt and taken out of the game. So it was kind of nice for them to go back into Philadelphia, high stakes, and then beat them 20-6. But yeah, so after that Cowboy game, they swore that they were going to be more of a running team, especially with Mark Rippon at quarterback. You kind of didn't really know. I mean, this was still good Rippon, aka the offensive line was still good.
I like that. Good Rippon.
They were young enough and still not hurt. Ernest Biner had like 1,200 yards that season. Gerald Riggs almost 500.
See, and people like Ernest Biner, and this is a good. I'm glad we're going to have this kind of show tonight because we've been wanting one of these. This whole rival thing we're doing with the Cowboys, it's fun. Like, this is as much as I enjoyed doing the Super Bowl research last year. Because we know a little bit more of how to edit and stuff and how we want to do things. We're doing a little bit more, but one of the things that I realize is, like, and I've told you this before, we've had this conversation. I could never hate on the NFC East teams like Washington because you had players like Ernest Biner who had basically, had the lowest of lows back-to-back years against Denver, but especially the Biner fumble game. And here he is back again. Wilbur Marshall, who had been considered dead by the Bears, and he comes back and he's back again. And it was fun to watch them. It was fun to watch the Giants in the Parcells 80s. It was even fun, even though I got tired of Buddy Ryan, the talent the Eagles had. Oh, we might have a frozen Noe here. Noe might be frozen. There he is. He's moving again.
Shots.
But yeah, so I mean, as much as they were rivals, I enjoyed the NFC East teams. I enjoyed San Francisco. I enjoyed Chicago. I feel very fortunate that I had a household that weren't the same teams. So I got to see when the other team lost, it kind of sucked for them, And so I think I legitimately feel this way. I think that's a lot of the reason why I'm a very empathetic person is I didn't want to see my mom not happy because her team lost, even if it was to my team. And so, like, I've even told you this, I would love for Washington to come back. I want Washington to be Washington again. I miss Washington being Washington.
That is what I have to agree with you in the sense that they're a great fan base, just like the Philadelphia Eagles. As much as I don't care for either team, I like atmospheres.
I don't
you know,
respect
like,
Philly fan base.
but again, like they just hosted WrestleMania 40 there, and you saw how just from reports that I looked at, like that fan base is just so rabid. They're so good. It makes the watching experience more entertaining.
So I
Whether
don't have a problem with that.
whether they're happy or not, like it's just fan reaction is so key.
Whether they're happy or not, I like that.
Yeah, it's good. Like that was kind of the reason why, like just bringing up wrestling. I know on L4 we have a wrestling channel, and they'll talk about it more. But that was kind of the reason why The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, became more of a bad guy on that, just because fan reaction. And they knew the WrestleMania was going to be in Philadelphia, and it was WrestleMania 40, and they wanted it to be as spectacular as possible. And from all reports, it sounded like it went well, and it sounded like The Rock was just, just being a more asshole version of himself.
Well, the great thing about The Rock is, and this is all great wrestlers, except for Hulk Hogan, and even Hulk Hogan at times I'll give him credit, he sold well, but Rock has always sold well. Rock, to take one of his own terms, has always known his role, and he knows what makes great wrestling. Yeah, every once in a while you want the Bill Goldberg run where somebody's unbeaten and all, and you just can't beat, nothing you can do can beat them. But for the most part, we want people that win and lose, and we want people that know how to make losing look almost as good as they're winning.
Did you watch the WrestleMania this weekend?
I watched highlights today. That's all about.
So you remember that Undertaker segment with
Yeah.
him? I really thought that should have been Austin. I guess he wasn't there at WrestleMania because it felt like it would have been perfect that Austin was there.
Yeah,
like he just showed up.
That's a good point.
Yeah, because them two fought at WrestleMania 3 or 4 times.
But now I want to say this. Obviously, whatever it was that made Austin have to retire the neck must be pretty serious, because he's not done anything.
2 years ago, he main evented the first night of WrestleMania.
Yeah, and that's when he was like, I can't do this anymore, wasn't it?
No, it was so in 03, his last match against The Rock, that was his last match technically. And then 2022 happened, and then they did a talk.
I'm saying though, after 2022, I think that's when I heard him say like he couldn't do anything anymore. Like even
that
even
part
what he did then just took it all out of him.
So that part I never heard it, but yeah, he just fought one of the current guys. It was like supposed to be like a talk segment, but it turned into a match. Like he was trying to trick him and whatever, but ended up being good. Everybody liked it. It was more brawling, which is better for Austin because of his neck issues, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like it was a good show overall. I mean, it seemed like he could do that, and from looking at Instagram and looking at Facebook, it seems like he's getting in better shape too. So you kind of assume that he would have made another appearance at WrestleMania.
Well, and maybe he can. Maybe I might have been, great. On top of all the weather, all the internet issues, I've now got storm sirens going off here in Rowlett. We're about to have severe thunderstorms. Severe thunderstorms, but that's fine.
What were your thoughts on the eclipse today?
That was awesome. We talked about it a little bit before. My fiance is very much into the astronomy and stars and things like that. She almost minored in it. She knows all the names of the constellations and all that kind of cool stuff. And so she was very excited. And, so I'm going to, even if I'm not excited, I'm going to at least try to be excited for her. But it was awesome. It was really, really awesome. That was the first time I've ever recorded. It's the first time in whatever years it actually darkened the world here in Texas. And it was surreal, man. When it got dark and all the birds stopped because they thought it was nighttime and bedtime. And then the way, and I explained it to you, the way the light came back on, it looked exactly like if you're in a high school stadium and the lights got turned off for some reason and they have to turn them back on after it's already dark. And the way everything almost looks fake because it's just a weird shadow on it. That's how the world looked. And it was just blew my mind. Yeah. And if you hear the alarm, we're okay. It's just a severe thunderstorm going off here.
I can family hear it. Yeah, when I was experienced, I was outside in my patio watching it, and it got cool. Like if the weather felt crisp.
See, it didn't me here, and maybe it's because I'm on the lake. The wind stopped and it got real stuffy. It wasn't hot, it wasn't cold, it was just real stuffy. Like you know how it is when you go to bed and like if your electric goes off and you realize the fan's not on, you wake up and you're like stuffy. That's how it felt to me when it was completely dark.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you and I and we live about 25, 30 miles apart. So yeah, you and I had two completely different experiences. To me, it wasn't humid. It was just crisp. It felt like being, I don't know, in a cold weather town when it's like 60 degrees, no wind. It's just what
That's
it felt
awesome.
like. It was nighttime at 1:42 p.m. Central Standard Time. Uh, it was. I mean, we'll probably never see this again. So that's why I was really excited about it. Just something you'll never see, but it's right there, and all you have to do is just go outside.
Yeah. And again, it's surreal. It's weird. It's weird in a fun way. It's, I will admit that there's a minute where you're just going like, is the sun going to come back?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. There was like a little bit of, because we don't know and we can't control it, so that's what kind of makes it fascinating. That's still, being a Trekkie, that's still the undiscovered country. Just going into space, exploring more of that. Yeah, so I was very happy about that today. And then, of course, we live in the DFW area in Texas, and there's supposed to be raining the next 3 days. So, yeah, it's whatever.
What up, Big Papa Madone? He said, you probably just forgot to wear underwear again. I never wear underwear. I don't know what that has to do with the. Are you saying I got humid? But wouldn't I be more humid with underwear? I mean, I don't know. But anyway, welcome to the stream. We're glad you're here. As I'm trying to decide just how bad this storm's going to be here. It would be on top of, again, not having internet in the studio, so we're actually going through intern noise, and it's actually going pretty good. But I'm using my phone hotspot, and we don't know when the internet's going to be back on. And now we're getting severe storm warnings. Underwear sweaters, I like that. Wait, I don't wait, huh? I don't even know how that makes sense, but I like it. But so did you go back and watch? Did you watch in the moment any of the WrestleMania?
No, I just saw the highlights online, just because on so WWE and ESPN still have a working partnership. So I'll get push notifications from ESPN whenever they have major pay-per-views with the WWE, and sometimes they'll do AEW stuff too.
Yeah.
So I kept getting notifications like R-Truth and The Miz. The Miz was Mike Mizanin from the Real World. He kind of parlayed his fascination and love for
He's a
wrestling.
wrestler now. He's
Yeah,
a
I mean,
wrestler
and
first and
20,
foremost.
20 plus career, Hall of Fame career. Him and his wife have their own reality show on one of those cable networks.
I still think he deserves a long run as the main bad guy. I still think that they've done it first, but they've never given it to him for a long, long time.
It was pretty short. He did main event WrestleMania one year, which is a rarity for anybody. Only 40, 50 people have ever done that. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, he never had a sustained run as the top villain, kind of like Roman Reigns has had this last 4 years.
So let's talk about that. You and I, huge wrestling guys from the old school. I'm a little bit older than that. I got into it in the 80s. The Von Erichs, world-class championship wrestling here in Dallas, Mid-South in the South, back when you had territories, and then, Vince McMahon, for good or bad, changed that, made it national. I kind of fell out of wrestling in the mid-90s. I think everybody did. Wrestling was kind of crappy then. And then WCW came out with one of the most brilliant angles in history. I would contend it might still be the best angle in wrestling history with the NWO and how that took over wrestling for 3 years. WWE then, now WWF, of course, or no, excuse me, other way around. WWF then, now WWE. They countered with their greatest era at the time, the Attitude Era. I think this goes to show you always need two national wrestling federations going good. And we could say that AEW, which, by the way, Cody Rhodes basically helped get started.
Yep.
That has created a new era in wrestling at WWE now, where it's long form storytelling. And what I had gotten so frustrated about over the last 10 years was you had this month to month, every pay-per-view had to be a different new story. And so everything ran for 30 days, and nothing past 30 days you forgot about. 60 days, it was completely different. 90 days, those two guys are now on the same team. I love this long form, even though I didn't really watch it in real time, but I love what they're doing in WWE now. It makes me think, okay, I kind of now want to turn back and start watching and seeing where they go from the bloodline, because that was a brilliant idea. The rules of it was absolutely brilliant. I hope that style of wrestling or that match doesn't go away. I would like to see that. Heck, you could make that a mid-card Mania thing from here on out, a bloodline match.
Yeah, I mean, we could have a whole happy hour podcast just on that family, that storyline the last 4 years. It just think about like how it redefined a character in Roman Reigns.
Great point.
Stand out at Georgia Tech in the mid 2000s. Cancer, had to step away from football, got healthy, decided to switch to his family roots because he's part of the Samoan dynasty, essentially, like generations and generations, which also The Rock, aka Dwayne Johnson, aka the biggest movie star right now. He's also part of that family through his mom. So he decided to go into that route. His cousins were already in it. They kind of like, got him in there. He tried out. He was a natural. He has a great, like he was a defensive lineman, so he slimmed down a little bit to have the more of the cut look. And then he's a good looking dude. He's 6'3", about 250, 260, can move. He's very athletic. Like he is the total package, essentially. Not Lex Luger, but he is the total package.
Nice.
But yeah, so they try to shoehorn him into like white meat baby face. They gave him blue contacts. Vince McMahon was a stickler for not looking old, so he made people dye their hair, their beard.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was one of those things where it's just they were trying to shoehorn him into something he really wasn't. He was a main event player, but he wasn't like this person they were trying to portray. And then
and he was widely hated by the fandom.
The best thing that happened to him, unfortunately, was COVID, because of his condition, he had to step away during COVID and kind of like isolate and be safe, come back. And he made a promise to himself. And when he came back, he was going to be himself. So this version we've seen the last 4 years is more of what we know about Joe Anoa'i, aka Roman Reigns. And everybody seems to be positively responding to it. He seems comfortable on the microphone. I remember hearing about like a famous terrible promo he did where he said suffering and succotash. Yeah. That's how
nothing can be worse than Stevie Ray's infamous N-word promo.
Oh my gosh. That was Booker T. That was Booker T.
I mean,
which is even worse because he's like an all-time great.
Oh yeah.
His brother, his brother was great, but Booker T became like a singles multi-champion. But so just his story, the whole Anoa'i bloodline, that's the whole dynasty. That would just be a whole nother podcast in and of itself. That'd be a fun thing to talk about, though. Like just because that kind of turned everything around for the WWE, and then what kind of helped them out was AEW. Cody Rhodes.
That's what I said. You got to have a second federation pushing you for talent, pushing you for stories.
So when I was 12, 13, 14, I was watching WWF, and they were kind of struggling. Then they got, WCW was ahead of them, like you were saying, like they were doing really well, the NWO and all that. So it kind of forced McMahon to give these younger stars like The Rock, Triple H, trying to think of other ones, like Mick Foley with Sword. Yeah, Stone Cold. let them have creative freedom to be themselves. That's
Shawn
worse.
Michaels.
Yeah, Shawn Michaels. So he started letting these guys be more themselves. And at that time, Shawn Michaels was kind of an a-hole. Everybody will say that. And Undertaker, even Michaels himself will say that. That was kind of the whole genesis of DX.
Well, that took the Click. They were known as the Click.
Yeah.
And what they wisely did, and sometimes this is how it works. If you want to be successful, you got to go with the assholes. But they let them act kind of like how they did in the locker room out on the onto the TV. And the weird thing is it worked. And it not only worked there, but it also kind of worked into the back locker room because it kind of eased some tensions. Because I read this from a book about the Monday Night Wars. Shawn Michaels realized, like, I am an asshole.
Yeah.
Like, I need to stop being such an asshole all the time, because he was like, at one point he turned to Triple H in one of their booking and was like, man, y'all keep making me look like a dick out there. Triple H. And remember, they're running together. They're best friends. And Triple H's like, yeah, because you're a dick back here all the time.
Yeah. In real life, Triple H and Shawn Michaels, they are best friends. They formed this clique. I think that's what the group was called.
Yeah, the Clique.
With the Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, X-Pac, and all them. But yeah, Shawn Michaels was wilding out. I think he was one of those guys that, he was getting the attention he wanted finally in his mid-20s, and then he started he was a guy that had a lot of confidence issues, and then he had the back injury in '98, left, kind of retired prematurely in his early 30s, found Jesus, came back a better person as a result, and kind of had a good 6-7 year run where he was still one of the best in the world, just older and wiser and less stupid. But yeah, Triple H was kind of shoehorned into that group just because he was a sober guy. He didn't really drink. So they needed a DD. So he was their DD. And that kind of, they just liked him after that. And he was part of the clique. But,
yeah, that's, nostalgia, whatever. I told you this before. Like I said, I'd been out of wrestling, like watching wrestling from the 90s. And then I go back to college in 97. And I go back to a friend of mine, Jackson Harrod, who I love to this day. He lives there, and he's one of those guys that lives in the town and kind of goes to the junior college, kind of, doesn't, just always time taking some classes and stuff. And sirens are going off again, folks. He has this big collection of all the VHS tapes, and this is 97, so everybody still had VHS, but all the WCCW stuff. He was such a wrestler. He was on the message boards in the 90s before people even knew message boards were a thing and stuff. And so we would start going over to his house on Mondays, me and another friend, David Giles, and we would go over there and we would watch, or we would play NWO versus WCW. You happen to have that game on your N64, but we'd play that from like 4 o'clock till 6 o'clock, and then we'd watch live, whichever one was the most we needed to watch live. And then we'd watch the other one and we'd tape it. And then eventually WCW stretched theirs out 1 hour earlier. So you would always start with WCW. And one of the greatest bits ever is they got the booking results from one of that night's WWF. And so they read all the results so that you're like, you don't have to go over there. This is what happens. This is what happened. And WWF couldn't adjust in time. They just had to run through it. And so, man, that was just a fun time. But you needed both of them there, or none of that happens.
But that ended up being their downfall.
What?
Because in January of '99, Vince McMahon booked Mick Foley, Mankind, to finally win the championship for the first time in his whole career.
And they said it.
And Eric Bischoff told Tony Schiavone to say it on air. And everybody turned over. Over 500,000 people turned over from WCW to the WWF just to see it. And it's the what they term it, the pop heard round the world.
Yeah,
it was.
Now that didn't kill WCW. There was things already.
But it was, Yeah, so it was the start of the decline, though. It was where people were starting to notice that WWF had all these young stars, and WCW started to decline creatively. They just were trying to.
They relied on the NWO, and then they had 75 different factions of the NWO. They had the Wolf Pack.
Yeah.
They had Latino NWO, and some of those weren't bad at first. Like when I went, I've told you the famous match where we went to Shreveport and we were watching WCW. It was a fun match, but at one point, a fan gets onto the ring, and so they have to break up and take care of the fan. And then Lex Luger lays back down where he was. And then another one, and this is the one I always remember. It's the Giant, and he had just turned one of his turns over to the NWO. So he's talking crap into to the ring, and he's literally standing. We had really good seats. He's really standing right next to us. And I can't remember who it was in the ring said something really funny, and it chuckled the Giant. He went, "All right, that's pretty good." But he said it off the mic, but we could hear it. He literally turned to Scott and said, "All right, that's pretty good." And Scott was like, "Hey, yo, it was kind of funny."
That is what Scott Hall was saying. R.I.P.
And I always forget about that until he brought that up. I'm like, oh yeah, that's true. And then that was also the beginning of the true independent circuit. And we got to go see Spike Dudley, who was the official Dudley boy brother at one point in ECW. He was young, skinny, and he took bumps. He did the extreme, and he's a brilliant dude. He's like a teacher. And we're sitting there like he's coming out, and we're sitting, and this is in a Lufkin, Texas rodeo arena, and we're sitting there, and he looks at us and he goes, "The things I do for y'all." And he went out and got his body all thrown around and stuff. And so that night we're done and we go to Denny's, and Spike Dudley's in there in the Denny's eating, and we got to talk with him. And it was like just such, because he had touched greatness because he was on ECW. And dude, ECW was on a different planet, man. ECW, you want to talk about Philadelphia? Philadelphia was ECW. Yep. That was raw. It was dirty. It was, all the extreme rules. They're the ones that literally brought the extreme belt that then WCW and WWF at the time, now WWE, they tried to do at the moment. And it felt, I legitimately remember a time between 97 and 2000 being excited to get online, read message boards, and to get the weekly magazines.
I'm going to pivot off of wrestling in a minute, but I wanted to say, if you want to watch something related to ECW, go watch. This is after, though. Just to your point of the fan reaction in Philadelphia, how passionate they are. 06. This is 5-6 years after ECW is over. Rob Van Dam versus John Cena at the ECW arena in Philadelphia. It's like 1,000 or 2,000 people there.
Yep.
Just watch the match, and you're welcome. Let's go ahead and say it right now. Someone recommended it to me. I watched the whole thing. It was ridiculous because everybody's just so packed in, and everybody's so close to you. That was like, it was amazing to watch for me. It's probably on YouTube somewhere, but yeah. I want to pivot on to other subjects real quick. What are your thoughts on that big news that happened yesterday with John Calipari going to Arkansas?
That's one of those things that I was surprised, but then really was I surprised. Aaron Jackson Hendon, he didn't care what 80s wrestling said. Hogan's the pinnacle of wrestling. So attitude era still is one. I do still think, and I'm not just saying that.
You're kind of pausing out.
I guess a little bit. Again, I'm at the start. I think that was.
You're okay. Okay. Yeah, you're kind of cutting out and you're freezing right now. So I'm just going to continue. Anyway, John Calipari, he signs a 5-year deal to go to Arkansas, almost $9 million per year. Probably could be more money. depending on incentives he's has in his contract. I'm as shocked as everybody else, but a part of me is not shocked because they kind of haven't been relevant in the tournament in the last 5-6 years, and that fan base sees all these top recruits coming in. They see that they have all this talent on the team, and nothing happens in the postseason, and they just go to the draft. So I think that's kind of what's going on with that fan base right now. They're just they plateaued. They've been to 2 championships or so with Calipari. They won one with Anthony Davis, the unibrow, back in 2012, and then they went to the championship another year. I think it was with Julius Randle or someone else, 2014, 2015. And yeah, they really haven't done much since 2019. I don't think they've gotten out of the first weekend since 2019. So yeah, that is it's not as shocking when you think about it that way. But you would think with someone that gets consistently into the tournament at Kentucky, they had Billy Gillespie, and they were initially happy, but then it didn't work out. So, yeah. So I'm not sure where Kentucky's going to go. I have a couple of good friends that live locally that are from there. They don't know what's going to happen now. They're kind of like just throwing up the hands. But yeah, I really like the hire for Arkansas. Arkansas needed something like this. Like you saw Alabama, they just made it to the championship or the Final Four this weekend. So it's kind of like a great time for Alabama basketball as Nick Saban's leading football. Yay, you're back.
How about that? I heard everything you said, 100% right. I think Calipari kind of finally got a little frustrated with, like, it's just different expectations at Kentucky. And I'll be honest, I never understood his move to Kentucky because it just felt like you're literally, I mean, I get wanting to coach for a team like that, but I also feel like, I don't know, I feel like you want to cut your own path. And I love this for Arkansas because Arkansas, like, again, go back to rivalries. When I was watching basketball, it was Tom Penders at Texas, and it was Arkansas and Nolan Richardson. And, I think some of the most underrated teams are those Arkansas teams, the one that won the national championship and the others that, played close to the national championship, and Todd Day and Oliver Miller and all those guys, and Stromile Swift, who ended up at LSU, but for the longest time was being, he was supposed to go to Arkansas, and he left because, anyway, it's just, that was a great era for Arkansas. And Arkansas is one of those, man, that they love their basketball. My brother-in-law is from Arkansas, a big Arkansas fan. I'm happy for them because I think Calipari can kind of get back to just doing what he does best, and recruiting is part of that. But I also think at times people forget just how good of a coach he is, and I think sometimes he needs lesser talent to kind of prove that, if that makes sense.
You hit the nail on the head there about coaching. Think about what he did at UMass in the early '90s, a team that you haven't really heard of since '96. Look at what he did with Memphis. At one time was considered. Sorry, that's Erickson Hendon. At one of the times, Scott Thurman was considered like the next possible Jordan. It just never happened. That's who I was thinking of. Stromile Swift was from Shreveport too, but he played for LSU. But I go back to that early '90s. That's nostalgic for me, man. UMass versus Temple. Cheney versus Calipari. Oh yeah, and the fight they had, that was awesome. I love that. See, it'll be a 50 to 48 game. It'll be a 50 to 48 game, and they'd be over having a fisticuffs,
fist fight in the corner, then having drinks later that night. What I remember the biggest. First off, this is one of those. This is what Sports Center did for all of us back then. It opened up the world to a Eastern Seaboard battle between UMass and Temple out of Philadelphia. Man, we're talking Philadelphia a lot today, but it opened us up to that stuff. We felt like we were part of that. Big Monday, you remember Big Monday? It would be the Big East, and they would usually have the Atlantic 10 early on. It would be a UMass versus Temple or one of those, and then you'd get Georgetown versus Villanova or Georgetown versus Seton Hall, and it doesn't matter like what area of the nation you were from back then. You got to decide, man. And I miss those days of college basketball, and I miss those days of Sports Center. And no, it's not political. Sports Center died because we can all find our stuff online now. That's why Sports Center's dead. That's why ESPN's not what it was. Yeah, they picked a really bad decision 15 years ago and went with the Skip Bayless and the A. But I don't blame them. You had to do something. But what was awesome was Sports Center because you got to know what the whole nation did sports wise.
100% agree. It was necessary at the time, and then now it's necessary to have Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith.
Hang on, I'm going to go check my internet again, so pick a topic and start talking.
Okay. I'm going to pivot on to hockey, actually, because hockey and basketball are about 2 weeks apart in the season. They played 82 games, and they're, a week or two apart. Hockey has about 5 games left in the season, so about another week left, and I'm really curious to see what's going to happen right now toward the end of the season. There's still some playoff positions available. Right now, the New York Rangers have the number 1 overall seed. They have the number 1 seed in the East. And, as a Stars fan, the Stars are number 1 in the West. They're leading the Central by 5 games with 4 games to go over Colorado. So it looks like they might win the Central. They have a good shoe-in to win the whole West. The Vancouver Canucks, they're leading the Pacific Division with 102 points. They have 5 games to go, though, so anything could happen. And as far as wild cards go, Nashville and Vegas, the defending champions Vegas, are leading right now. And St. Louis and Minnesota Wild are the only other eligible teams to make the playoffs in the Western Conference. Over to the East, though, there are 4 other teams that are vying for 1 playoff spot. The Tampa Bay Lightning have clinched a playoff berth, I think as of today or yesterday. So, hold on 1 second. I got to get Terry back in on here. Oh, wait, Terry's gone. Oh, wait, no, Terry's back. All right. So anyway, yeah. So Terry's back.
My internet's back.
Oh, congratulations. Shots.
There we go. Shots.
To internet.
To the internet.
Oh, yeah. So I'm talking about hockey, Terry. And I was talking about the West initially. Talking about the Stars. Big fan, obviously.
Hey, big win for them yesterday.
Big win for them yesterday. And I already told you I'm going to go watch the Sabre game tomorrow night at the AAC. A good friend's taking me out for my birthday. Well, belated birthday gift. They're about 5 points in the Central Division, 4 games to go. Seems like they'll probably clinch that division. They have a chance to get the number 1 overall seed in the West. Vancouver and Colorado are the biggest challenges right now to that. And then I was just saying that St. Louis and Minnesota are the only other 2 wild card teams that have a chance at getting in the playoffs that are not in contention right now outside of Nashville and Vegas. But I was going to go in the East because Tampa has clinched a playoff spot in the wild card position.
Dude, they've been the hottest team in the NHL since March, man. Really since February.
And so right now, Detroit, Pittsburgh, Washington, Philly, the New Jersey Devils, the Sabres, and the Islanders are all competing for 2 spots. And this next week is going to determine everything, and it's going to be pretty fun. And I'm glad I get to go to a game tomorrow night that might determine if the Sabres are eliminated or not. Right now they're at 79 points with 4 games to go. The number 8 seed Red Wings are at 84 points. So it almost is like they have to win out just to get in. And the Buffalo Sabres were a team that were good, and they've had some late season pushes the last couple of years, and they never made the playoffs. They haven't made the playoffs, I think since 2010. So, I'm just really looking forward to seeing what's going to happen in the last week of the season, and I am looking forward to NHL playoffs. That is some of the best viewing for any sports fan, I would say. I would put them there with the NFL playoffs, baseball playoffs, and
All
NBA
playoffs
playoffs.
are awesome, dude. Let's be honest. All playoffs are awesome for their different reasons.
Football is my sport, but for some reason, something about hockey makes it so much more fun to watch.
I think because it lasts so long, it almost lasts to the point where it's almost too long, but it always ends up awesome. Aaron asked who we thought were going to in that Metropolitan. I think, man, when you look at it, Islanders, Penguins, and Capitals, it's so funny because when you think of the Islanders, you still think of that, that more of that team thing. And then you think of the Penguins and it's Crosby on his last legs. And you think of the Capitals and it's Ovi on his last legs.
I want him to get the record, by the way. I think he has another season or two, and I think he'll get it.
Well, yeah, because the thing about hockey, it as violent and as physical as that sport is, you can protect the older players to where they can play. You put them in more just pure scoring situations. You don't have him on the ice for defensive stuff, and you can kind of save his legs. That's the reason why Jaromir Jagr literally is still freaking playing hockey right now. He plays over in the Czech league, and he almost averages a point a game. And it's because the sport, as violent as it is, the way it deals with shifts and stuff, you can hide them. I want the Islanders to get the playoff spot, though. I just feel like they're the team that could be a thorn in the side in the East.
They're so strong defensively. I definitely agree. Pittsburgh's on a roll right now, so they'll be a team that's going to challenge the Islanders. Capitals, Flyers, they are tanking right now. Caps lost 6 in a row. Penguins have lost 7 in a row. They're still in contention. That's why they're still being spoken of. Red Wings, they had that long streak of making it into the postseason, like 25 some years. This would, if they make it, they'll be the first time they made it in some odd years. This is going to be a good final week. I think I'm gonna go ahead and make my prediction.
All
right. So I feel that the Penguins will usurp the Red Wings, but I think the Red Wings might usurp the Islanders as well.
Oh, wow.
So I think it'll be
now.
So in the Met, I still think the Rangers get the #1 overall seed in all of hockey. I think they'll get that over the Stars, followed by the Panthers, the Penguins, and the Met. And then in Atlantic, I think the Bruins win the Atlantic, followed by the Panthers, Leafs. And then wild card is going to be Tampa and the Penguins.
I don't have a problem with that. I still feel that the Devils or the Sabres will at least one of them will get hot long enough to at least be a threat, because that's usually what happens.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the Central though. I want the Stars to be the #1 in the West. I don't want the President's Trophy. That's just long been you don't want that.
It's almost like a curse. Yeah, I get it.
It almost is. But you're seeing the Stars, that depth, literally could have 9 guys score 20 goals. Jason Robertson's technically having a down year, but if you actually look at what he's doing, he might be playing his best hockey, because he is morphed into what Mike Modano was, in that a better two-way player.
Yes, I agree. I think he's been a more all-around player this season. You're not asking him to score 60 goals, but it'd be nice if he got 30 and 50 assists, and was roughing up some of their better talent on the opposing team. So I think, to me, he's being more of a all-around good player, not being on shifts that allow a lot of goals, plus minus, basically what I'm saying. I really like what they're doing. They had a big win at Colorado, like you mentioned.
7-4.
That is huge. Colorado won the championship 2 years ago. They have great talent on that team. They are a dangerous team. It reminds me of the late 90s when as a kid, I would fret watching the Islanders or the Avalanche play the Mavericks, the Stars.
Speaking of, have you seen that trailer for Joe Sakic, Saving Sakic?
No, I didn't know there was one.
Okay, hang on. We're gonna do some. We want to do this kind of stuff. So give me a second. Let me see if I can find it and see if I can upload it. We're getting internet.
So I remember. So I'm old enough to remember the Quebec Nordiques. That was, as a kid, I didn't realize. Oh wait, the Nordiques have the number 1 seed, and the next year they just moved to Colorado. I didn't get what was going on. Obviously, because the internet was still in its infancy back then. But yeah, Owen Nolan, all them guys back then. It was such a good team, and then they just kind of crapped the bed in the playoffs that year. But the next year they moved to Colorado. They win the Stanley Cup. First year they go to
First year.
Oh wait, what do you?
No, just hit play on that or share it. I'm about to play it. All right, you ready?
All right, yep, go ahead.
The New York Rangers just offered Joe Sakic
$15 million upfront signing bonus.
This is a crisis.
Joe Sakic was the Colorado Avalanche. Charlie Lance is going to become a movie mogul.
Life after Mark Messier for the New York Rangers.
We needed to do something to plug that hole.
The Avalanche lost $8 million last year.
Once we launched this offer sheet, they were going to have 7 days.
Everybody's watching.
The connection of the movie was so out of the frame.
Will the Avs match the Rangers' offer?
I had no idea.
Wednesday, August 13th, that's the Avs deadline.
We're going to go into this like warriors.
A city that loves its hockey and its team's best player holds its collective breath.
My job was to find the money.
That looks great, dude.
Wow.
I
want to do a review on that.
Yeah, let's do it. I was actually going to see if the happy hour after that one.
That looks amazing.
Dude, that would be perfect because the next happy hour is in that Monday between the Friday recording the look backs and then that Thursday doing the live NFL draft. We've decided we're going to do a happy hour that week. So let's watch that separately and then let's talk about that at least at some point in that show.
Yeah, that is because that's right up my wheelhouse when I was growing up watching hockey. ESPN with Gary Thorne and Bill Clement commenting. That was my childhood. That was me growing up watching good hockey. Yeah, man, I definitely want to watch that. That's because I remember just them moving from Quebec to Colorado. I know Colorado already had a franchise, eons ago. I think it was the Colorado Rockies, believe it or not.
Yeah, it was.
They, I don't know what happened to them, but yeah. So Owen Nolan, I remember him with the Nordiques. I remember them being a really good team. Moved to Colorado and then win a cup because they, traded for Patrick Waugh. He moved from, he got traded from Montreal, and they just had a really talented team. They were already good the year before, and then they get all-time great goaltender, and they win the cup. They beat the Florida Panthers. I think they swept them. So yeah, I definitely want to watch that. Saving Sakic. That's going to be fantastic. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I know some people say nerdy, but that's what we do. Like when we hang out, we'll watch documentaries like that.
This is more of our speed, like us just chit-chatting about random stuff.
Yeah.
We have a run sheet-ish of just stuff we want to talk about, but we really I haven't looked at it at all. I have it up.
I haven't pulled it up because I had the internet issues.
Yeah. The NCAA men's championship is starting. Purdue versus UConn. UConn right now is leading 14-11.
Astros have tied at 5-5, by the way. That game is still just in the fourth. This is one of those long games because this game started an hour and a half ago and it's still in the fourth. Let me ask you something. Well, let's talk about this now. We can kind of curve into college basketball. It's time.
I definitely want to bring up something about college basketball, but go ahead.
It's time for them to stop starting this game at friggin' 8:20 p.m.
Amen. I completely agree. And they really should start this an hour, maybe even earlier than that. I remember one sport doing that. I know the WWE has started their premium live events a little bit earlier than normal. And another sport did too. I can't remember, but yeah, I completely agree. It should be starting. This should have started at 7, maybe 6:30, but it's okay. We're gonna be up watching it.
Yeah, but I mean, I won't. I really won't. I mean, partly because we do OutDrank the Coverage right now, and that helps. But even if I wasn't, I'm curious. Like, we've kind of got a reverse, which we haven't really talked about. You've kind of got a reverse of yesterday, where it's now you've got a team in UConn who's like a machine versus a Purdue team that has the back-to-back player of the year. And they've got more talent around him than Iowa does. But man, UConn is just so well-oiled right now.
This is okay. So you remember 79 championship. No, you and I don't remember it, but we know from looking it up. Indiana State versus Michigan State. Larry Bird, Irvin. First matchup ever. Tell me Caitlin Clark didn't run into the same situation in back-to-back years.
Yeah.
She played in 2023 against LSU versus Angel Reese, who was a star.
But Angel Reese had 3 other players that will end up playing in the WNBA with her.
Amen. Exactly. This is the point I'm trying to make. Caitlin Clark, she has a good team around her. Good. But the team she played against against LSU in 2023, that was a great team. Great coach, controversial coach in Kim Mulkey, but a great coach nonetheless. Great coach, great team. She can't win that. She gets back the next year against a similar situation, except this is more in her favor because South Carolina lost to Iowa in the Final Four last season. Graduated all those players. A lot of them went to the WNBA because Dawn Staley, the head coach for South Carolina, is a fantastic coach. She was a fantastic player. Great.
Loved watching her at Virginia.
Okay.
At Virginia.
Oh, that for
wow. Okay. Hey, let me ask you something real quick. Could Dawn Staley be a men's basketball coach?
Yes. And I think that that's going to happen sooner rather than later. I really thought that what's her name she was with the Spurs under Popovich, and then she went to the head coach for the Aces.
Yeah, she's in the pros. She will never get a college job because it is different. Let's go back. And by the way, Aaron, we will talk NBA playoffs. Don't worry, we got
Becky Hammond.
Becky Hammond.
Yeah, so she was with the Spurs, went to the developmental league. She won a summer league title.
Uh-huh.
And to me, I thought she was going to be the next Mavs coach because Mavs, I think Rick Carlisle had just finally left to go to the Pacers.
And Cuban's very big on they've had a female on staff for multiple times for the Mavericks and stuff.
She was a favorite of Popovich, won a summer league title, well-respected, WNBA veteran, great star. I thought it was a shoo-in, didn't get it. So she went to Aces, won back-to-back championships. I think she'll eventually be the first female coach in the NBA.
Yeah, but I'm talking about college. Can I have one? Can I throw one out for you if I was them?
I guess so.
Kentucky.
Oh.
Screw it.
Do you think she would do that? Leave the Aces and go to?
No, I'm not. I'm talking about Dawn Staley. You're talking about Becky Hammond. Becky Hammond will not be a college coach. Nothing against her, but her lot is in the pros. And college pro basketball is the one sport that line is really, really deep. It's really hard to, and I know a couple have, but it's very rare. Even John Calipari went to it didn't work. Rick Pitino went, it didn't work. Yeah. I could see Dawn Staley though. If you're the Wildcats, what does it hurt, man? Like the issue with college basketball men's right now is there's not that many big oh my God, coaching names. Do you give Shaka Smart a chance, who kind of failed at Texas? No fault of his own. It just didn't work. He's back at Marquette. He's had really good run, but maybe he's just a really good small talent, coaching. You're at Kentucky. Who are you going to get? I say go for Staley and swing for the fences. Give her 4 years. What's it going to hurt?
Yeah, she came to USC, South Carolina, in 2014, and turned them into just a revolving door of WNBA lottery picks. So she knows what she's doing at a place that historically has not produced consistent power like South Carolina,
right.
and they're now one of the premier programs just because of her. So yeah, I could definitely see it. Just like with Calipari. Yeah, this is a great analogy. Good, hey, Terry, good job,
Shot.
buddy. Yeah,
Shot for being an intelligent host.
Actually, I'm the host, but yeah, I am intelligent. Ooh. Thank you. Anyway, yeah, Dawn Staley going into the men's college would be interesting.
Be fun.
It would be a nice experiment. She is definitely capable. It would need to be someone that's capable like her or Becky Hammond.
I just don't think Becky can go to college. It's just college is college basketball and baseball to an extent, but college baseball doesn't give out full scholarships. College basketball is the one sport that you kind of can't CEO it. You still got to be the guy that goes to the AAU tournaments. You got to know all the connections. And it's hard for male or female to convert from that pro style and how things are done down to the college. Again, that's why that crossover doesn't happen a lot. And usually Brad Stevens might be the one big success. And even he didn't win a champion as a head coach. He got the Celtics really far, but then he stepped into the front office. So I just feel like if I was Kentucky, man, I don't know who else you're going after. Chris Beard? But Chris Beard is
they initially did that, but he's going back to Ole Miss.
Yeah, Ole Miss, and I think Chris Beard is still kind of wanting things to be more on the low end. You don't want to put him back into a high spotlight job because things got dismissed for all that when he was at Texas, but it kind of got dismissed by. It's not that you're guilty or innocent. It's just we don't have enough to take you to court, and so I don't know if he's ready for that. I don't think Shaka. I know that he's probably going to be a name, but again, maybe he's just really good at the smaller colleges and not really good at the top. Who else? Eric Musselman left Arkansas, but he goes to USC. The USC coach goes to SMU, that's the big surprising move.
No, they're going to ACC.
Yeah, they're going to the ACC, which will immediately put their profile up, but still.
Well, think about what's going on with the Pac-12. That's really the reason why he left the Pac-12.
USC Saints are going to the Big Ten.
Yeah, I think
it's a good basketball league.
Illinois is a good Yeah, they have a lot of good programs, but I really feel that other conferences are doing a little bit better than the Big Ten right now.
NETSN says SMU has money. They have Neal. Yeah, but I know at least on the football side, SMU has been really slow to the Neal. SMU has money to an extent, yes, but it's never as much money as you think when it's a small private school.
Yeah,
Astros.
They have a lot of richer kids that go to SMU, so usually NIL is not a big issue there.
Astros have exploded for 3 in the fourth, 3 in the fifth. They now lead the Rangers 10-5.
Oh, tear it down. It's all over.
Down. Bring Pete O'Brien back at first base.
I want Pete Incavilla.
Inky? Oh, man, he was fun to watch. 100 home runs. Still, to this day, Pete Incavilla leads the college baseball in most home runs in the season and most home runs for a career. Think about that. That's going through the 90s when everybody was hitting home runs and they were using bats that would literally kill a person. I mean, there was a time, folks, that every other hit seemed to be a home run in college baseball. It was not fun.
We have to talk about NBA playoffs.
Oh, yeah, we will. Hang on. We have another thing I want to check before I say anything. Oh, that's not working. Anyway, yeah, let's go ahead and go to the Mavericks. Boy, they have been one of the hottest teams since March. They go on, and the Mavericks were streaky all year, but especially in March, they had and I still remember this, they had the 6-game losing streak. And everybody was saying, look, coach, talking to Jason Kidd, he had this really long press conference. And he was very honest. He's like, look, folks, we've got the talent. We've got the right mindset. We just got to be consistent. And everybody's like, dude, you've just lost 6 of 7. Indiana just destroyed you. And he's like, we're going to be fine. Yeah. And look where they're at now. It's funny how Jason Kidd has went from hated to loved, because I don't know if there's a hotter team in NBA right now than the Dallas Mavericks.
I can't think of a team that's perfectly constructed as the Dallas Mavericks. Just looking at like the Western Conference in general, there's a log jam. The top 3 teams, Minnesota, Denver, Oklahoma City, there are a game apart from each other, and they're just going to be fighting each other for the next 4 games to determine who gets the number 1 seed in the West. And then us and the Clippers, by us I mean the Dallas Mavericks, and the Clippers are fighting for the 4th spot. At this point, it really doesn't matter whoever the 4 and 5 seed is. Just park the bus, play each other, try to win a game in LA, or the Clippers try to win a game in Dallas, and just let it be.
Well, and it kind of feels like it'd be fitting because the Clippers and Mavericks all of a sudden kind of have this nice little mini playoff rivalry going. But let's be honest, of the top 3 teams, Timberwolves, Nuggets, and Thunders, I trust the Nuggets. They've
all 3 in the same division.
Yeah, but I trust the Nuggets. They've had playoff success, but the Timberwolves and Thunder, if I'm the Mavericks, I'm not afraid to play them.
I would rank it. Yeah, I would rank it Nuggets, Timberwolves, and Thunder as far as threats, because the Thunder is still young. They're a team that's good. They don't know how good they really are. SGA is a phenom. Giddey is just fun to watch. So yeah, I think they're a year away. And then the Nuggets, they've already won a championship. The Timberwolves are there. They would be the team I would pick that probably could dethrone the Nuggets this season. But, we'll see. It just depends on what happens in the playoffs. But I'm very excited. Go ahead.
Hang on. Why is it that it feels like for the last, I guess, 30 years now, the West just always seems deeper than the East? Because look at it.
You've got
the Warriors at number 10. Yeah. 43 and 35. You've got the Eastern Conference where you're going to have possibly 2 teams with below 500 records playing in the play-in game, which, by the way, the play-in, brilliant. It's fun. It makes everybody all the way down, unless you're like the Hornets, you're still engaged in what could happen. There's still a chance if you have a good week, you're sitting in a play-in.
Yep. Yeah, I love that concept. So play-in 7 through 10, they just play against each other. Whoever wins, it's like winning in. So 7 plays 10, 8 plays 9. Winner plays each other. So, it could be 7 and 8 playing each other. And they get in. Sorry, I've outdrank the coverage. But yeah, I do love that concept because it adds 2 extra teams in each conference that can make it in to have a chance to win the championship. Teams that would typically, when you and I were growing up, would never have even been considered. So in this case, going to the Eastern Conference, the Bulls, they are 6 games out of the Heat for the last spot when you and I were growing up for the playoff spot.
Yep.
Going to the West, the Lakers, they are a game away from the Kings, who are in the 8th spot right now. But in the West, it is very competitive right now because the 5th seeded Mavericks are 48 and 30, and they're only 5 games better than the 10th seeded Golden State Warriors, who are 43 and 35 and who are streaking. The 9th and 10th teams, Lakers and Warriors, they are probably the scariest teams out of any of the 10 in the West that are in playoff contention.
Yet, if the Mavericks have a really great week, they could easily be into the 4th or even the 3rd spot.
Oh, for sure. Because
they play the Thunder. They play so here's the next 4 games is the Hornets, the Heat, the Pistons. So you get an East Coast swing, 2 of those on the road. But then on April 14th, it's at the Thunder. The Mavs should at least win 2 of those 3, if not even all 3, but at least 2 of those. I would think that they can beat the Hornets on the road and host the Pistons and beat them. The Heat, that's a toss-up. Heat's still good. But the Thunder, I mean, you could literally be going into there depending on, let me see what the Thunder schedule is. Hang on. The Thunder schedule is the Kings, the Spurs, the Bucks, and the Mavericks. So they kind of have the both same kind of schedule where they should at least win 2 out of 3 before they play each other.
When you think about the Bucks, they are just backing into that 2 seed, and they're not even trying. They've lost 4 in a row. The Magic and the Knicks and the Cavaliers are just fighting to usurp the Bucks for that 2 seed, and none of them are really doing a good job of it. I mean, the Magic have won 6 of the last 10, but yeah, they're still a game back. The Knicks are a game back. Jalen Brunson is playing at an MVP level. I'm not sure he's going to win the MVP in the NBA. It could be Jokic.
I think it might be Luka this year, dude. I
don't think it's going to happen. I really think either SGA or Nikola Jokic.
I don't know, man. Everybody was waiting, and I know they had that 2 years ago. They had that little Western Conference run, but that was just a weird year. Yeah. I feel like they always knew that Luka was truly a top 5 player, but I feel like this year it's finally coming out that this is the guy. And it's funny because he needed someone like Kyrie Irving as the second guy to show that what Luka can do. But I want to go back to the Milwaukee. Yeah. I don't root against teams a lot, but for some reason, I don't want them to do well. I think they did Adrian Griffin really wrong. I don't, that just felt like a weird. And Milwaukee's done this a couple times now. They hit that panic button way too quick sometimes.
Dude, I 100% agree with you. I did not like them firing Adrian Griffin because you knew going in their defense would take a step back because they got rid of some of their defensive stars that made them so well defensively. That was a sacrifice to get Damian Lillard. I'm fine with that. Everybody should have also been fine with that. And they were actually pretty good. I think they were 30-13 with Griffin, and then they fired him.
Yeah.
They were in a good spot. They're still in the 2 spot, but I think they're 500 with Doc Rivers.
Yeah, they are.
So I'm like, they've regressed considerably trying to improve their defense under Doc Rivers. So for me, I don't think it was a good move. They should have given Griffin a whole season at the very least, considering the fact that they were still they had a winning record. They were not struggling. They couldn't stop anybody, but that was just mainly because of what they purposely did to get themselves in a position where they felt that they could overtake some of these really good teams that were good offensively, that they just felt that they couldn't outscore.
I like what Aaron said. My problem is if you fire AG, you don't bring in an under any circumstances Game 7 loser like Doc Rivers. Have a contingency plan in place. So here's the thing, and we're about to wrap this up. But here's the thing: we look at that as fans. Oh, he can't win the big game. They don't look at that in organizations. They look at it as like he gets them to the big game. Yeah. At that point, look, we can blame coaches. We can get and I think in certain sports like football, coaches have way more of an impact on your game plan and stuff. But in basketball, right or wrong, Game 7, that's up to you guys on the field or on the court. Doc Rivers isn't going to make any big changes that's going to do anything because that's just not how basketball is. Yeah. And so I don't really blame him for the Game 7 stuff like I would maybe a football coach or a baseball coach with a bullpen and that kind of things. I truly believe basketball is more of an accumulation of talent that fits your system. And I get that they claim that the system that Adrian Griffin was running didn't work. But like you said, it wasn't like they were losing.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, you're not winning enough. Okay, I get that. And you want to be proactive, but this just felt way early.
It felt extremely early. And the players didn't seem that they were like voicing concerns about Adrian Griffin at all.
Yeah. And some things were said after, but yeah, you're right. You didn't have that run up. I mean, unless we find out that a couple of players, the Greek goes through the management and says, look, we can't work with this dude. I just don't feel like, I don't know. Milwaukee's done this now twice. I just feel like they just over anticipate. I get the fear of wanting to be too slow, but you can also be too fast. And I just feel like that they've done that.
And they fired Budenholzer so quickly, and they hired Griffin, and then they fired him quickly. Yeah. So to your point, I don't get what they're doing there. They could, as quickly as have they risen, they could quickly fall back to where they were before, just mediocre to crappy. So.
And again, we could literally be having the same conversation if they kept Griffin and they started to collapse in the late season. But I do truly believe that unless something just really, really bad happens, you hire a guy, you give him at least the freaking year that you hired him for. You've got to. Again, unless it's just, there's the Bobby Petrinos at Atlanta. There's that kind of stuff. I get those. But this wasn't one of those. They were still winning. Yeah, maybe they weren't winning like they wanted to and all that. But you give the dude time to make those adjustments.
I think that if this season plays out, the Celtics should win the NBA title. I don't really see any other team give them a challenge.
The Mavericks will win the NBA title this year.
And the Super Bowl.
And the Mavs will then win the Super Bowl. In fact, what will happen? So here's what's going to happen. We'll call it now. In the first round of the playoffs, it'll be the second round. Dallas will shock everybody and win the division. Be the first time that we've had back-to-back same winners. And then right when we start the first game, we're going to be hosting Green Bay again. Jason Kidd's going to walk out. And Cody Rhodes is going to walk out. The music will come loud. The lights will darken. The lights will come up. And Jordan Love will be sitting there, and behind him will be the Undertaker. And I don't know. You remember when we could talk about that? When we've never, our friendship is kind of based in cowboy collapses.
Yeah. Well, when I first met you, you were wearing the DeMarcus Ware jersey.
I love DeMarcus Ware.
Beware or D-Ware?
I would have married him at some time.
I know you would have.
But he's part of the problem. We've talked about it. You look at his big game moments. For all the talk about quarterbacks, you talk about big game moments, and you go back to that 2007. I know it's the first drive, but that first drive, and he bounces off sides on third down, and they end up scoring on that drive. Little things like that. I'm just saying. Anyway, I think we're done for the night, brother.
Yeah, congratulations to South Carolina winning the championship.
What's the score, by the way?
Oh crap! I did not.
Rangers are getting their butt kicked. In college right now, UConn leads Purdue in the first. 3:49 left in the first half. Yep. 30-25. I think Purdue's going to hang around. I don't know if they win, but I think they're going to hang around, at least make this a great game.
Yes, I think it will be close. It was the point I was trying to make earlier with Caden Clark, Zach Edey with Purdue. So 2018 Virginia, 1 seed. They were the first team to lose on the men's side to a 16 seed. Last year, the same thing happened to Purdue. They were the second team. But
I didn't think about that.
But the following year, Virginia in 2019 made it to the championship. They beat Texas Tech for the championship in overtime.
Great game.
This 2024 Purdue team basically doing the same thing what 2019 Virginia did. Lost as a 1 seed the year before, coming back to the championship, playing UConn, and it's eerily similar in that regard. But they have a team it's star laden with 1 star. UConn has a very good team. This to me mirrors the women's side, where Purdue has Zach Edey, Iowa has Caitlin Clark, South Carolina 5 awesome starters, UConn 5 awesome starters. Usually the team wins in this regard, and it looks like UConn's going to repeat as champions. To me, I want Purdue to win, but UConn is the better team. I will say that they've been the better team the last 2 years. They're a really good team. Same thing with South Carolina. They were undefeated this year. One of the greatest women's basketball teams of all time, I would say. So Yeah, that was really all I wanted to say about the
I do want to bring out, by the way, real quick, as we end this, the NCAA women's game was the most watched basketball game since 2019.
You can thank Caitlin Clark. You can thank Angel Reese. You can thank a lot of these other women that
Dawn Staley,
the head coach for South Carolina, just letting these women be themselves, market themselves. The Cavender twins for Miami last year, then we made the Final Four. Like, just let them be themselves, and people will watch. And Caitlin Clark's the modern day Pistol Pete. She is fantastic. I love watching her play. I will watch the WNBA next season just because of her.
Yep.
So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, I think that was kind of wraps it. Stephon Diggs was kind of the big.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that. Don't worry, we'll talk about that on our draft night when we have an hour show. That's actually, I've already started putting some Houston notes together because we're going to play a game of, is Houston going to be great, or is Houston going to be the team that has all that expectations and then for whatever reason it doesn't happen, because that happens a lot. In fact, you can make the case it happens more than that team usually winning, actually.
If you look at their depth chart, Houston Texans on paper, I don't think there's a better team outside of the 49ers.
That's a good point. We'll talk about that. Anyway, you're going to have to end it here, but we do appreciate everybody for joining us. Had some really good numbers, and man, we are having a blast. These are, you and I talk about this all the time when we're just talking. These are one of my favorite things we do now, just to sit around, have some drinks, have some talks, talk with the audience and stuff. Again, you can email the show, odtcshow@gmail.com. We will answer those questions on this show as well. Of course, we're also part of some fans group, Texas Ranger fans only on Facebook. Also, Dallas Cowboy fans. I almost said David. We're on there too, and we post the show. So if you have any questions, you're always welcome to ask them there. But great show, Noe. We'll talk next time, which will be April 19th. A look back at that honorable mention and a look back at the Green Bay Packers, the number 4 rival of the Dallas Cowboys.